Hello there and Happy New Year to you. I hope that you had an awesome evening last night, that today is going swimmingly. It's gonna be a good year. I can just feel it. So I appreciate all the time that you've stuck with me through Pan That Palette and various panning challenges. Today is not necessarily a finale video. It's gonna be a recap of what's happening, and then we're gonna talk about what's going to go on with my eyeshadow collection for 2022, because 2021, I really took a departure from doing what I had done before with Pan That Palette, of starting off with the intentional goal of finishing a palette. I was able, let's see if I can speak today. I was able to just about finish the Subculture palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I went on and called it done because I did use the majority of that palette. But in terms of finishing eyeshadow, I deterred from that original goal and made it more of an intentional effort to work on 3 shades out of a palette to hit pan, and that way I would have a little bit more momentum throughout my collection. So today is kind of a recap on what's happened for 2021, and we'll talk about a continuation effort, because I'm gonna go on and continue this as a status update going into 2022 because I like this project, and I feel like I really just kind of want to stick with it. I do want my goals right now to still stay focused on eyeshadows and really get to know formulas and color stories and things like that. But at the same time, keep it moving through my collection and get some more use out of some more products. So let's go through. None of this is in any particular order, and I am missing 2 palettes because after I finished the Subculture palette, I went on and tossed the packaging. So if you want to see the lessons I took away from that, kind of my traditional finale style where I talk about what I learned from the palette, I'll go on and link that video up here in the card above, because the Subculture really did help prepare me and teach me a lot about myself in the process. It just took me several years to get through the palette, so it wasn't like I was able to pan it in a year, by no means. But the other palette that I'm missing is my Lorac Mega Pro 3 palette, because in the course of using it in the last couple of months when I pulled it out, I was having a lot of eye irritation, and so instead of trying to push through it and risk eye infection, I went on and just got rid of that palette as well. So, but that is another one to add to the list. But going back to the other palettes that I have, like I said, in no particular order, I was able to hit 3 pans in the Juvia's Place Nubian 3 Coral palette. So we'll call that 3-6, we'll call this number 9 shadows being done. I love this palette. And again, I'm not gonna go through the whole lessons of like what I've learned from each of these things, because if you're curious, actually, let me go on and link the playlist of what went on with 2021. So that way, if you're wanting look ideas, kind of see what I learned about each palette, those videos will be there for you to reference as well. So Juvia's Place Nubian 3 Coral, this was a really fun palette. I did enjoy this. Then that took us into, or actually I finished this beforehand, but the MAC Warm Neutrals palette. I loved this. Here are my 3 shades here. This is a palette I should pull out again for this year, because I'm kind of feeling back into the MAC shadow vibe. It's just after I finished working on the MAC shadows, like I needed to take a serious break because it takes so long to hit pan on those. So that's already 10, 11, and 12. Then on the MAC trend, that takes us into MAC in the Flesh palette. I really loved this palette. This is one I'm thinking would be really great for 2022, because the color, the Pantone color of the year is, I forget what the name of it is called, but it's a periwinkle blue, so kind of a bluish purple on the lighter tone side. So I have a pretty big gut instinct that we're gonna see a lot of cooler toned palettes come back into trend this year. Maybe not as cool toned as like we went years and years ago, but I have a feeling that like cooler tone neutrals are going to be back in vogue. So something to kind of think about. And again, it kind of shifted what I wanted to do with my eyeshadows. I started kind of picking things that I want to pan for this year. I was definitely keeping the periwinkle perspective in mind, because we'll see it in fashion trends with clothing. We'll see it in home decor. We'll see it in choices for flowers and things like that. So periwinkle is going to be all the rage this year. Okay, then the next palette we're going to go into is the ColourPop Grandeur palette, and I technically did not complete the 3 shades out of here. This one fell out, and also too, it was a chunky glittery mess. So technically I did go on and use these two, and then I got some severe progress in this one, but we're gonna go on and count it as 3. I really do love this palette, and it is a great go-to for me to reach for work makeup. And so this is definitely something I'm going to continue working on in 2022. Another, like this was a surprising favorite for me, was the Natasha Denona Triochrome palette. It took me a while because I spent a lot of months dedicated to working on these shadows, but these are the 3 that I hit in here. This one being the most surprising for me. Loved it in my crease, and then of course like a highlighting shade, a transition shade, and then I did get some work on this purple shade over here, but definitely this kind of a magenta color, beautiful, loved it. Oh yeah, and then I had some work on this shade over here, and yeah, kind of that Winnie the Pooh, so loved that. Then I do remember kind of going with cooler tones for a little bit. I worked on my Milani Soft and Sultry palette to kind of get a drugstore palette in the mix, and these were the shades I worked on out of here. I actually hit pan in 4 shades out of here, because this one, this one, this one, this one, and then I got a pretty good dip in this. So yeah, we'll kind of count that as like the pan I was missing with the ColourPop shadow, because I got 4 to hit pan out of this palette. And then another favorite, I really enjoyed this palette, was my Lorac Pro Soleil palette. I really do enjoy the Lorac formula. And here we go with my 3 shadows out of here. I had a lot of warm tone gold and brown looks for the majority of the year. You can honestly say I pretty much panned the same look. Now that I'm looking at these shadows all together, I spent a huge chunk of my year wearing gold on the lid, warm browns in my crease, smoking it out with deeper browns and kind of a cream highlighting shade, and then I would blend it out with the orange. So that was like, that's my 2021 look to really go about it, which, you know, it goes to show kind of how that happens with reviews with palettes. Like, we tend to go with looks that we know are flattering for us and favorites, and pan that palette really kind of pushes you out of that, because when you have to pan every shade in a palette, if you want to make that your goal, you really kind of have to think outside the box a little bit. So that's interesting to see that I kind of stuck with the same vein of look the entire year. And I didn't get sick of it because I changed formulas, but it was definitely the same look. That takes us into one of my favorite things of progress this year, and that was my Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. And I'm gonna go on and insert a picture here last time, because I've made substantial progress since we spoke last a couple weeks ago. And I know it's not quite the full month since I'm doing this at the beginning of the year. I wanted to kind of stay on track, since I'm seeing everybody's new Pan That palettes pop up and finale videos. So this has been my labor of love. It turned out to be one of my favorite palettes that I used in 2021. And I gravitated toward it because as my hair is starting to go grayer, since I'm letting it go natural, I really felt inclined to use this and spend, especially the last month, really dedicated to it, because I'm probably going to reach for it less and less and less as my hair continues to become grayer. So I am proud to report the hard work is paying off, because I was able to hit pan in not just 3, but 4 eyeshadows. Like, woohoo! So as you can see, we hit pan in Queen, we hit pan in this cream to powder matte brown in the bottom, we hit pan in this metallic penny shade, we hit pan, this has been the most recent, like as in 2 days ago, I finally hit pan with this matte warm brown over here called, what is this shade named? It's called Rope. Loved that. And then also too with the, I've made progress with this Blaze shade over here, and I've also, you can barely see it, but I've actually hit pan in this very kind of an emerald green color right here. I loved using this on my lower lash line, and I ended up in the last couple of weeks, I would mix it with this kind of, it's not a navy blue, it is more turquoise, kind of an aqua combination, and when I combine the two together, I got a really beautiful kind of a mermaid shade that I would put on my lower lash line to give my brown eyes a really strong pop. And again, I would wear that with gold on my lid or kind of a coppery shade on my lid. Smoke it out with these warm browns we're going to talk about in just a minute, and then pair it with orange, and it was just beautiful. If I didn't want to wear red lip, I could wear something like this. This is Mac's Cream in Your Coffee. I would wear it with like a burgundy lipstick. I really spent the last month wearing a lot of red lipstick, but on the days that I just wanted a departure and do something different, I would try those other combinations, and I loved mixing these two together, in particular on my lower lash line. So I am definitely so proud of myself for this palette, because to spend, what was this palette, like what, $129? That's a satisfying feeling to at least be able to hit pan in something, because I didn't want it to go bad without me having a chance to use it. And it's made me really learn how to love the Natasha Denona formulas, from her cream to powders to her mattes to her metallics. I'm a huge fan of the brand, and even though her palettes can be at a pricier, you know, have a higher price point, I know that in the future I'm much more willing to spend on palettes like hers as I continue to move things out of my collection, because I really do love her formula. So now I'm glad I have palettes. Like, I did pick up the gold palette a couple weeks ago, like right before the Sephora VIB sale in November, because I was like, I want to try it. And then I've got her Glam palette, and I've got Bronze and Zendo. So that's another reason I want to kind of just keep this going into 2022, because I don't want all these things to go bad, because I've spent a lot of money on eyeshadow in the past couple months. So that takes us into what's going on for 2022, because I was also working on my Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity palette. This was one that I did not have a chance to hit 3 pans on. I've been working on it, and I was able to hit pan in my first matte shadow here, and I've dabbled in some of these other shades, but I'm not ready to put this back in my collection yet. And I know that I don't want to pan it completely out of my collection, because it's just, there's a lot of shimmer going on here. I want to give myself room to kind of play with color, but at the same time, I'm really in a groove with neutrals. Like, I fell in love with neutrals again, as I know a lot of us kind of generally have over the last year, with you know, kind of embracing makeup again and wanting super easy, comfortable looks. But like I said, I'm not ready to put this away yet. So we're gonna go on and continue rotating this in 2022, but I am adding 2 more palettes to this initial rotation. So the palettes I'm going to start working on for this next rotation are going to be the Nabla Side by Side palette. This was released, did it come out this past year, or did it come out the previous year? I don't remember. I feel like it's been sitting in my collection for a little bit, but not too terribly long, because it is pretty fresh. So this is kind of my starting point with this palette, because I want to hit 3 pans in this. I have been able to finish my matte brown shade I'll talk about in my Vanity Pan update. So I have since moved into this matte brown. I'm also working on this matte black shadow down here as a liner, because I'm kind of feeling this mint look. It's what I want to wear for the next couple of weeks to make some progress. And then I've also embraced, this is a very similar shade to what I've been working on all through the year, whether it's been Pat McGrath, whether it's been my Metropolis palette, going into the Soleil palettes, MAC Warm Neutrals. This kind of shade has been what I've gravitated toward in my crease, and then I would smoke it out with a matte brown. And so I went on this very similar vein, and then I also love mixing this lighter tone brown in with it, just to kind of give it a little bit of a different depth than just being so dark on the eye. So I've pretty much got my 3 shades worked out between 1, 2, and 3, but this is going to be kind of the 4th shade. And then I've hit pan in the eyeshadow I've been using as my highlighter shade for the last little bit. It's been this L'Oreal single shadow in Paris Beach. It's a color riche. Let me show you this real quick, because it actually doesn't have a metal pane in the bottom. It has one of those grates. Or is that the great grid? I don't know, but as you can see, like, I have been able to hit pan enough where you can tell it's hit pan. So I'm kind of ready to just jump back into a palette and make some, make some progress. So as I work on the Nabla palette, I'm gonna start going into this beautiful shade down here called Rarity, and go on and use that as a highlighting shade. So here we go. We're gonna work on that and see what I can do. Three shadows or more, and then move on to the next palette. We'll kind of see how I'm feeling. Because like I said, as I got into the Natasha Denona, once I hit my third pan, I wasn't ready to like let it go yet. Like I wanted to continue working on it. So let's put out the goal in front of myself for 2022. I'm gonna work on a palette at minimum. I wanna hit three pans. But if I'm still feeling it, I'm gonna work on it as long as I'm feeling it. All right, and that takes us into our last palette. This is a Z palette that I've compiled out of my collection. Isn't it cute? It's totally reminding me of MAC lipsticks. I've owned this for a couple of years. It's by Z Palette. So if you ever were curious to find one of these, you might check eBay to see if anybody still has one of these available. But I have been looking through my backup stash, and I have 2 Adept Cosmetics palettes that I've depotted things through the years, and I've just really been feeling like I need to address the shadows in there, tackle some of them, and so I have created another palette with a smattering. We've got Juvia's Place in here, we've got some Lorac shades, some Too Faced, and so let's put it out there. I want to hit pan in a minimum of 3 shades, and if I'm still feeling like I'm vibing with this palette in a couple months, I'm gonna just keep going and see what we can do. So the first shadow that I'm tackling is this mint shadow over here from Juvia's Place, because I've really been wanting to just wear some mint eyeshadow. I have these glasses right here that have this teal background, and I've just kind of like, I've had mint on the brain for the last couple of months. And with the periwinkle vibe coming up for 2022, I thought that would be a fun way to incorporate more springtime makeup, be able to do mint and the periwinkle and purples and plums. It's gonna be awesome. So I don't remember specifically which palette this came out of. It was one of the early Juvia's palettes that was released. I believe it had a white top, and it had something like, not like Sweet Palette. Was it the one that started with a D that nobody could pronounce? There was the hot pink shadow in there, and then like a bright purple. This shadow was like, maybe this will jog your brain, but there was this bright pink, and then this mint color, and then there was a bright purple, some neutrals. I mean, just, it was a really fun palette from what I remember. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. But this shadow is absolutely gorgeous. I love wearing this on the lid. It is what I'm currently wearing today on top of an e.l.f. cream eyeshadow stick. Let me pull that out for you, because these are still available when you walk around your local Walmarts and things. It is the e.l.f. Mint Melt No Budge eyeshadow stick in the shade Mint for You. I use this on my waterline, my lower waterline, as well as a shadow base. Really, really feeling this vibe. Like, I've wanted to wear it for a while, and it's a nice departure from wearing so much gold. But this is gonna be how we start off 2022, because I've really felt the desire to just hit pan in a mint shadow, you know, freshen up my makeup a little bit, do a little bit of a different vibe, still kind of stay with the browns, because I'm gonna continue working on this Nabla palette, but I needed a punch, like a pop of color. So that's where we are. We're gonna work on this palette of a smattering of shades, and then have 2 stock palettes. And as I hit pan, then I will go on and move them out and continue moving through my collection. Let's do this. Let's knock it out. Get some eyeshadow moved out, enjoy using what we have, and just have some fun with our makeup. And get some creative ideas to look at your makeup maybe in a different way. And let's do this. Hopefully you don't hear my son like yelling in the background because he's playing Roblox or something. So, all right, until next time, take care, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. So, adios.